Hello again, everybody. This is Steve coming to you with a new puzzle for all of you to read over, watch, and enjoy. This is not a 100% mechanical puzzle, although kind of is in a small way. But uh, basically, the purpose of this puzzle is to uh, run a micro hydro system for generating power for a house. But what makes this interesting is the setup where this is located at. And this idea actually came from a picture I saw. Nobody actually gave me this challenge. It's just something I looked at when I saw the picture. I thought, I wonder if I could do this. And that's kind of where that came from. So, but yeah, basically you're taking a remote house in the middle of nowhere on a hill and providing micro hydro to it. Well, now this could pump water and other things like that, but the primary purpose of this puzzle is just could we get AC power to the house, and if so, how would we do it? So here's the basic premise. In the location that I saw in the picture that originally spawned this, you had two lakes. You had an upper lake and a lower lake. The upper lake it's not one of those ones like you have to fill or it fills only with rainwater and stuff like that. It's supplied with a water, river in and a river out. And basically, if you look at the larger picture, the river that drains this kind of winds back and forth in the background and comes out here. So there's always a supply of water coming into here, so that you don't have to worry about that part of it. The house itself sits up here on the hilltop. And now, not right here. Obviously, this is a flat image. If it was 3D, where the pump house would be right here, and then halfway around this. It's kind of like this horseshoe or half moon canyon that this thing sits at the top of. You have, the house is over here, and the pump house and stuff is right here. Well, it's really not a pump house. It's a water control house, but still. And that's how my design works. But anyways, in the actual picture, that's where the house would be, is over here, and where you're doing all your water stuff is over here. Just because the way the hill works, it worked better. The hill itself, I would have to guesstimate based on what I saw in scales and everything. It was about a 500-foot drop. And if you remember my previous videos about water, or the how much pressure you get from like 100 feet of fall and stuff, 500 feet would be 40 psi times 5, so you got a 200 psi on the down end, which isn't bad. Could be a little too much, but it's not bad. I mean, unless you're like really worried about having too much pressure on the down end, you can make 500 psi work. I'll tell you this much: your micro hydro would be going like, just really be going crazy with that much fall. But anyways, down here at the bottom is the pump house. Obviously, if this has too much pressure, and you can restrict it with a valve if you want to slow down the flow rate so that it's maybe it's not 200 psi down here. Maybe it's only 60 psi or something. It depends on what you want to do. You can do it that way, or you can move that up here. And the picture I saw, putting it on the side of the hill is really not an option. I mean, this is way steeper than what the hill actually was. But the hill was, I would say the hill was at about a good 45, 50 degree angle, somewhere in that vicinity. It was pretty steep. So sticking a hydro house on the side of that hill was not practical. So the only place was down near the lake, because it leveled out down there, and you could actually put a house in there, and you didn't have to worry about it suddenly deciding it wanted to transport itself from here down to here in the middle of the night because there was a landslide or something you did caused the side of the hill to slip. But anyways, the question with this design is, how do you get water from here through the mountain and down to the hydro supply? Obviously, since you have this up here holding back this water, you're going to have to dig through here, because water does not go naturally up over hills and stuff. So you're going to have to dig through here and go down, and if if you're in a wintry spot, you're going to want to bury the pipe all the way across anyways. So what was the best way to do this? Or what is the best way to do this? One way you can do it is to make a cut and lay a bunch of pipe, run it into the pond, fill this in, make your connections, cut the other half, run the pipe down here, fill it all in. The problem with this design is you've just weakened the top of the hill. Don't mind that up there. That does that to me. But anyways, you've weakened the top of the hill. If you're not careful, this spills over and your great water project turns into nothing more than a really unfortunate waterfall. So, what's the alternate solution? For me, that was to start by digging the pit for the actual connector. Basically, it's not so much a connector; it's a valve house basically. The pipe from out here comes into here. There's some valves and a connector and stuff, and then it comes out of there and goes down to here. What you would do is you would dig this first, which retains this and acts as a cofferdam. Once this is in place, I would say if you want to build that, you'd want to build it as a cement box. Put your pipes through the side, tar them in place, cement them in place, whatever you got to do to waterproof that box to keep it from leaking. And I would probably have, if you can, probably have some kind of drain off of here down to here in case there is leakage in there. Otherwise, you got to go in there with a shop vac and suck out all that water and stuff. I mean, it's not going to hurt it if it fills with water, but it's a little bit of a pain to deal with. But if you can't do the drain or you don't want to, just have a shop vac handy so you can pump out the water if you ever get any leakage in there. But anyways, you build this and you have the connector on this side, you have the connector on this side, and the pump in the middle, or the pipe in the middle with the valve. Then you can cut this out and cut it out in a way that it doesn't bypass this. One idea I had too was to not just build this box, but to have on either side of it on this hill, not this way, but left to right across the length of it rather than the width of it, was a cement wall. That way, if you're digging this out and it goes around, it comes up against that cement wall and goes nowhere. So you're not going to end up washing out the top of your hill and, oh shoot, and now you're in a bigger problem than you were before. So yeah, it's just basically a box with wings, if you want to call it that. Then, put your pipe in, cut it, drop it in here, run it up, and connect it to what you've got in this box here. And then connect the other half, digging out the hillside or doing whatever you got to do, run down to here. Now, one other thing you want to think about over here on the upper lake side is your inflow. Since you don't want water carrying rocks and sand and random fish and stuff like that going down into your micro hydro setup, because you're going to just clog your jets and stuff. What you want to do is you want to create, if you've ever seen like the drain field for a septic tank, this is kind of that, but in reverse, where you have a bunch of pipes laid in the water, covered in screen. I recommend plastic screen because metal will, or if you do metal, it'll rot out. But if you take like a pipe, I've seen these before, and it's kind of interesting. What they do is they take a piece of pipe, wrap that in like storm door screen, and then cover it with another pipe or some kind of wrap that's permeable, and then the pipe itself has little slots in it that aren't big enough for gravel to get through. Definitely not big enough for animals to get through. I mean, if you let like amoebas and little tiny microbes and things like that, who cares? Because you're doing microhydro. You're not doing potable water. What you want though is, like I say, anything that might clog the jet, you want to filter that out at the top, and you just have this big field of these covered lightly in, or covered in light gravel, like pea gravel or something. So and you got to think about this when you're putting this in. some of what you're going to be doing, you're going to be in water probably up to your waist or deeper, trying to, because you want that intake to be a good distance, a good couple feet below water, because as like nature does its course, that lake's going to go down, and then it'll rain, it'll go up, and then it'll dry out and it'll go down, and you want that couple of feet ahead there as a buffer in case those kind of things happen, just to account for the variation in the lake, the natural variation. But anyways, you'll have that little filter assembly that all comes together on the intake pipe. And really, when you're doing this part here, you're going to have, I would say, like screw-in fittings, or if you want to have all of this already assembled and glued together and everything, you could press fit it, but really gluing it's probably the better way to do it, so that it doesn't come apart. Because in time, it's going to expand and shrink and expand and shrink, and it's going to start separating and stuff unless you glue it. So, but yeah, this whole assembly can be glued. That's going to be in the water, and then if you like fill in part of this so that you can pump this out and then glue the rest of this, you could do that. You could use on the parts that you can't glue, like from here out to a certain distance, you could use those rubber pipe fittings that allow you to join two pieces of rubber unions. What I'm thinking of, it's got like a couple of I can't think of the name of them, but they're a ring of metal. It's got little slots in it, and then you put it around a pipe and you screw it down. It locks the pipe in place. I can't think of what those are called, but you could have a couple of those on there. Again, you got to consider that if you're doing this, you're going to have the potential for stuff rotting and decaying. So you may want to use zip ties instead to hold it in place, because the plastic zip ties won't rot, but those will age, so you may end up having to dig that up at some point in time and replace those, but hopefully you wouldn't. Anyways, once that comes through here, you're going to have this little pipe here, and then of course the valve, and you turn, because when you're putting this together, you don't want that water to flow. So you're going to put this together, plus you have this up here is an emergency, shoot, something bad happened, like say a pipe out down here blows out, your pump house has a really bad problem or something, and you need to isolate things up here. Turn the valve off, all this stops. You'd also have a valve down here, so that if you're working with your pump house, you don't have to keep walking up 500 feet up the hill to go turn the valve on and off, and you also don't have to worry about any kind of hammer effect or anything, or easing this in as that pipe fills and stuff like that. You just have it down here, turn it on, turn it off, and this would be the master, and this would be kind of the slave valve. And then this would just drain down into here. You can have that drain work however you want to, but that's basically how that would work. Now, as an alternative, what if you can't cut this, or you don't want to? You don't want to disturb the ground. Say it's something where you're a little worried that you might cause the hilltop to collapse or erode out and stuff. Well, the solution is just to go over the hill. But again, you have the problem of gravity. If you're going up like this, you don't have gravity to assist you like you do here. With this, you're below the water level. Natural water pressure and gravity and everything will run your system and pump the water for you down to your micro hydro setup, and you're all set. This does not. So how do you solve that problem? With a vacuum connection. You're probably going, what? Okay, basically, to explain this in real basics, what you do is you have your pipe out here, same thing as the other one, just that it's over the top of the ground instead of through the ground. Water's intake in here, comes up, stops here at this level. To get it above that level, you have to induce a vacuum in your pipe. And of course, you would have your supply line or supply valve down here, or isolation valve, turned off, because you need to be able to generate a vacuum. Then you take something like a shop vac. It doesn't take much vacuum. It just needs to be just enough vacuum to lift it up and get it over the hump. Once it's over the hump, it'll do the rest on its own. So what you do is you connect a shop vac to this. That will pull this up here. It will come over and it will fall down, and it will start filling the pipe. However, you can't just, okay, we're up here, it's come over, there's some water going down. You can't do that because as that water comes over, it fills the space and the vacuum goes away. And you end up with all of this big air bubble up at the top, which is, again, if you only, this is useful if you only need, say, like 200 feet out of this 500 feet. You can lift this up until you get enough pressure down here to get what you need. Maybe lift it a little higher to allow for, that pulling the water over. Like I say, if you only need the 200 feet, you could pull it over and fill it to 200, to 200 feet or 225 feet for, to allow for a little up and down or the vacuum changing and stuff like that. And I'll just do that and you're good to go. And then you would have like a little shutoff valve here so that when you pull the vacuum away from here, you're not suddenly letting a bunch of air in and there goes your siphon. You just basically run the vacuum enough until that pipe fills to whatever level you want it. Close the valve, pull off the vacuum, and let gravity do the rest. If you want the full 500, you pump it up until you hit water on the vacuum port. Now your whole line is full. You don't have any air bubbles or any airspace in there that's going to interfere with the siphon. Let gravity do the rest, and off you go. So, anyways, that's the basics of this one that I came up with for myself. Just, like I said, just one of those. I wonder if I could do that, and if I did, how would it look things? So, anyways, if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, ideas, suggestions, please feel free to let me know. Thanks.